Hey everybody, welcome to today. It's the second week of Squad Up. It's going to be a fun morning. We've got more games, more competitions between your squads. You had an opportunity earlier this morning to text in or respond to the poll of which team you're on, which squad you're on. Again, if you're not sure which squad you're on, if you didn't receive your postcard or it got lost in the mail, there are problems with USPS right now anyway. Let us know. We'll make sure we let you know which squads you're on so that your team can get points for you being here this morning. Today I want to start off, before we get to the game, and introduce our team captains and who they brought with them. So first off, representing the red team, Jonathan Cluis. Come on up on stage. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, excellent. Very quick. Secondly, representing the yellow team, we've got Ben Sider is here today, captain of the yellow team, cheering for himself on the way up. That's excellent. And the green team, Sarah Cobb. Come on up, Sarah. Okay, nice. Representing the blue team, the substitution captain for the blue team today is none other than Reagan Sheeran. Come on up, Reagan. Okay, excellent. So now in that same order, I'm going to let them introduce who they brought with them today. So everybody exit the stage except for our red team.
All right, so I have me, I have Johnny, and I have Jaybird with me today. So yeah. Oh, Jaybird fell out of the... All right. Yeah. Ben.
No, I brought with me today, he is an absolute beast at these games. He is the sauce of our team, all the way from Flavortown. This is Aaron Cluis. Woo! Woo!
For my team, I have your favorite person in the world, Liberty Beavers. Yeah, and then we have Allie Tracy, my favorite 11th grader because she's on my team at Gina last week. Anyway. And then we have Lauren Wright representing the 10th grade. Yeah.
All right, and best for last, we have the blue team representing the 7th, 8th graders. We have Natalie Langford. Woo! We have the sister, Heather Langford. Woo! Dynamic duo. And then we have Madison. Woo! Let's go, blue team.
So today's game is, again, it's called It's Just a Phrase. And so I hope you brought your phone with you. So if you brought your phone with you, and those of you online are going to be able to participate this in the chat if you would like to. Because we can award points to who gets it into the chat the fastest as well. So this is a texting competition. So we're going to see who has mad texting skills. There is going to be a phrase that I'm going to pull up on your screen right here on your monitor for you to look at. And the first person from the four that are competing against each other, first person to get it to my phone number is going to be the winner. You get points based off of that. We'll total all the points when everybody is done. So we'll go four times. So Jonathan, you may have some blisters on your fingers before the day is over because you get to go 4 times in a row, okay? Or it may be to your advantage. We'll find out soon. So give me the first contestants on the stage. Okay, you ready? If she sells seashells by the seashore, I'm sure she sells seashore shells. Punctuation is important. I'm seeing in this order, Reagan, Ben, Jonathan, Sarah. Okay, very nice. And I'm getting multiple ones from multiple people. Okay, excellent. Okay, give me 4 new people up here. Here we go. Okay, here's the second one. On your marks, get set. Go. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Easy, right? If it was the same phrase over and over again. Ooh, I got a 214. I can't call this out loud. Oh, Jonathan actually won. Look at that. Nice. Nice. Okay, next group up. Here we go. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Let's see if we got it. Johnny's feeling pretty good. Nice. Peter Piper. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's a peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Easy for me to say, right? I'm sorry. You're not supposed to listen to me. You're just supposed to look. Pickled peppers have to be pickled.
Let's go.
Maybe so.
Easy wins.
Nice. Ben, then Jonathan, then Liberty. And Heather's out of practice. Heather has not been texting lately about Peter Piper. Okay, next 4. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Last one. Ready? Go. Somebody want to read this for me?
No.
A flea and a fly flew up in a flue, said the flea, let us fly, said the fly, let us flee. So they flew through a flaw in the flue.
Very nice. Impressive. This is a tricky one. All the punctuation that's in here. Look at that, Jonathan Lewis. Points for the red team. I'll be checking punctuation. Look at this. And Lauren Wright. And Aaron. Punctuation makes a difference. Why are you brothers? That's a great question.
I'm going to be honest. I'm hyped about these squad wars because I like drama, I like competition, and I love an epic feud. Like Michael Jordan versus LeBron, like who's the GOAT? Chick-fil-A versus Popeyes, who's got the better sandwich? Like Hamilton versus Burr in the musical Hamilton, if you've ever seen that. I love them all. So now I need to know, you can type it in the chat, what is your favorite feud? And do you guys have any favorite feuds here?
My favorite feud is between Doofenshmirtz and Perry the Platypus.
I'd say my favorite feud is the one between like the lady who's shooting at the rats and between the rats and Ratatouille. You know, like the lady with the shotgun. She's like shooting at them and they have to like go down the river. It's a pretty good feud.
I don't really have a favorite feud, but I mean Gina and Sarah's bickering is pretty entertaining.
Yeah, and those are all great feuds, but sometimes feuds aren't as great. Like chicken sandwiches, Gina and Sarah's bickering, like basketball, you know, whatever. Those are all great, but the real feuds that happen that impact real relationships in all of our lives aren't always that great. And looking back, when you're fighting with your friends like that, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're in the midst of it, it seems like a pretty big deal to you. And it drives a giant wall of division between you and your friend who are bickering. And neither of us are willing to tear it down or climb that wall to fix that relationship.
We just talked about how resentment and feuds can cause a wall to build up between family and friends. So different things like misunderstanding what other people are saying and are not listening well, hurt feelings and just not being okay with what someone did to you, prejudice, judging people for something that maybe they didn't even do, or judging them before even really knowing their side or who they really are, or jealousy, wanting to have something they have, or anything like that. can cause division between friends and family. There are so many reasons why a wall of resentment might get built into a relationship, whether it's a friend or a family member or someone you hardly know. Relationships aren't always easy or happy. We fight, compare, compete, and sometimes we even stop talking. All of these, do I read all of them right? Yeah. Okay, cool. All of these individual bricks eventually grow into a wall of separation in our relationships. When we don't deal with them, they can result in a relationship so broken that it seems impossible to put back together. This is a problem for many of us today, but it was a problem for the early followers of Jesus too.
We're going to pick up where we left off last week in the book of the Bible called Ephesians. But first, we're going to recap it real quick. Paul, the author of Ephesians, was one of the leaders of the early church. And remember, the church doesn't mean a building or an event on Sunday. It means God's family, a community of people trying to follow Jesus. In the early days of the church, before social media, the best way for word to get out was by letter. In the letter we're going to look at today, Paul is writing to a church family in the city of Ephesus. Before we dive in, you should know that the early church was made up of two groups of people, the Jews and the Gentiles. Jesus, by the way, was a Jew. The Jews were God's chosen people, the people who were used to tell God's story and that gave us the Old Testament of the Bible. Gentiles is a word that means everyone who wasn't a Jew. If you weren't Jewish back then, you would have been called a Gentile. Before the start of the church, the Jews and Gentiles were not people you'd often find hanging out together. For generations, they'd had big issues and differences of opinions that divided them. When Jesus arrived and declared that everyone, Jews and Gentiles, were invited into God's family, some Jews and some Gentiles finally began to come together around the message of Jesus. But getting along wasn't exactly easy. Paul knew that walls of separation couldn't exist between followers of Jesus if the church was going to survive. So now Heather's going to read Ephesians 2:11 through 18.
Therefore remember that formerly you who are Gentiles by birth and called uncircumcised by those who call themselves, the circumcision which is done in the body of human hands, remember that at that time you were separate from Christ, excluded from citizenship in Israel and foreigners to the covenants of the promise without hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, you who once were far away and have brought near the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. By setting aside in his flesh the law with its commands and regulations, his purpose was to create himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace, and in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who were far away and peace to those who were near. For those him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit.
So that's a lot, but here's a quick summary. Paul is talking about two walls here. The wall that separated the Jews and the Gentiles, and the wall that separates all of us from God. This wall wasn't built by disagreements or misunderstandings. The wall between us and God was built by us and our sin, our rebellion against God. Paul says that through Jesus, both walls can be knocked down.
To fully understand what this means, we need to talk about the wall that exists between us and God. So for this, we're going to have Madison read Ephesians 2:1 through 10.
As for you were in your transgressions and sin, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world, and the ruler of the kingdom of the air, and the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying and cravings of our flesh, and the following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath, but because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace that you've been saved, and God raised up with Christ and seated with him in his heavenly realms in Jesus Christ, in order that in the coming ages he might show the incomparable riches of his grace, expressed in his kindness in us, Jesus Christ. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is from the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do.
All right, so maybe you've heard people say the phrase, Jesus saves, or maybe you've seen it on a poster at a football game, or perhaps painted on a wall in your city. It can sound kind of weird, right? The word saved means that Jesus has rescued us from a life and eternity without God. So sin is what we need to be saved from. It's the thing that robs robs us of our connection to God. Sin is anything that we do that goes against God's purpose and will. Because of sin, every single one of us is separated from God. But Paul isn't writing this letter to convince anyone of that. Instead, he wants to talk about how Jesus has a plan to fix it. Jesus did fix it through his death and resurrection. Jesus made a way for us to no longer be separated from God. Jesus took the first step towards us. He pulled down the wall that separated us from God and made a way for us to be reconciled.
In this chapter, Paul talked a lot about reconciliation. But what does it mean to be reconciled? First, Paul described the way Jesus tore down the walls between the Jews and the Gentiles and between us and God. It's incredible that Jesus did this for us, but that's not the end of the story. Jesus didn't just destroy this wall. Jesus then created something new, a new way for us to be close to God and a new way for Jews and Gentiles to be united under the name of Jesus. When I think about reconciliation, I think about tables. When Jesus tore down the wall of separation between us and God, it's kind of like he built a table and invited us all to take a seat. Walls keep us separated, but tables let us see eye to eye, have conversations, share meals, and invite others to come and join us at those tables. Although we were separated from God and from each other, God decided to make reconciliation possible for us. Through Jesus, we can have peace with God and with each other. But what does our reconciliation with God have to do with how we get along with other people? Because of Jesus, we are reconciled with God. Because of Jesus, we can reconcile with each other. We can do for others what God has done for us. In the early church, there were Jews and Gentiles. Both groups had traditions surrounding how they followed God, and it was easy for them to get swept up in judging one another, disagreeing with each other, and being stubborn about their own perspectives. Paul knew that walls of division would keep God's family from thriving. The same is true today. Just like God called the Jews and the Gentiles to reconcile and make peace with each other back then, God is calling us to reconcile and make peace with each other today. Just like God took the first step toward us, we can take the first step towards others. Just like Jesus tore down the walls that divided us from God, we can begin to tear down the walls we've built between each other. Just like Jesus built a new way for us to connect with God, we can work together to rebuild relationships that were damaged. Why? Because we're God's family. And as God's family, we can do for others what God has done for us. This week, I want to challenge you to start tearing down a wall and building a new table.
Maybe the wall you need to tear down is between you and God. Jesus has already made a way for you to come to him, but maybe you need to do some work to remove the obstacles we've put back in place.
Maybe the wall you need to tear down is between you and someone else. Just like Jesus made the first move of reconciliation towards you and me, maybe there's someone in your life who needs you to make the first move.
This week, how do you need to humble yourself, ask for forgiveness, and give forgiveness?
When you go to breakout rooms with your grades, here's what we want you to do.
Identify a wall of separation in your life, either between you and God or you and another person.
Also, write down a step you could take to begin tearing down that wall. Writing down really makes it last.
Paul had to remind the early church how important it was for them to reconcile and come together, and that message is still true for us today.
The church is God's family, but if we want to act like God's family, we're going to need to tear down some walls, build some tables, and do the hard work of doing for others what God has done for us.
And thanks to Jesus, we actually can.
Now we're going to head to our breakout rooms, and as always, who knows what God has in store for you? Who knows?
We know, or no one knows. Or, I don't know.
Goodbye.
Thank you.